Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Kathy and Alan, for initiating and organizing this day, and also all others for their contributions. It's really an honor for me to see so many people here today, and it's really a joy to offer this presentation. So it is called On Shoulders of Giants. And why did I choose this title? It doesn't come from me. Isaac Newton, the famous physicist, who also was a very spiritual man, he says, if I have seen further, it's because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. And Newton's metaphor tells us that we are like dwarfs who are standing on the shoulders of those men, women who are bigger than we are. And that's why we're able to see more, and that's how we can have a wider perspective. It's not because we are so sharp or bright or because we are extra special. I haven't invented logosynthesis. I may have discovered it. I found it because giants allowed me to climb on those shoulders, and they showed me where to look. And in this presentation, I'll tell you where I look and how logosynthesis emerged from a process that took 40 years or more. I'll mention some of the giants I met live and in the literature, and I'll tell you about the roots of logosynthesis. I won't be able to condense 40 years in 30 minutes, so I don't pretend to be complete. This presentation will have 3 parts. First, the big picture, essence, the self, and the matrix. Then a part on energy and healing, and the 3rd part on words move energy. So, essence, self, and the matrix is the first part. And in this first part, we have the big picture, and the big picture has 3 basic assumptions. We are more than a body, we are more than a mind, we are essence. Where does this come from? Who are the giants? The first one for me in this story is Robert Monroe. You may not have heard of him, but between 2001 and 2005, just before I discovered logosynthesis, I attended a series of events at the Monroe Institute in Faber, Virginia in the US. These workshops strengthened my connection between the timeless and the world in space and time, and I learned to understand this connection more deeply. And it was very interesting that every session of those workshops started with what is called the gateway affirmation. And the gateway affirmation is, I am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. Therefore, I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control and to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and those who follow me. Also, I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. So if you followed my work in the last 18 years, you will have gotten this message. I've always had a deep awareness that we are more than biological machines with a wet computer between our ears. In this context, other giants appeared on my path. So we come back to my assumptions. This keeps coming back. And I didn't invent this myself. I found it everywhere. It's always been around. And Søren Kierkegaard, the philosopher, summarized it beautifully in this quote I found a few weeks ago. A human being is a synthesis of mind and body, but he is also a synthesis of the temporal and the eternal. Mind and body are temporal. The internal is what we call essence. What is essence? Here we have Ali Hamid Almas. He is a psychoanalyst and a Sufi scholar, and he coined a beautiful word for what is beyond body and mind. He calls it essence. And if you read his book, Essence with the Elixir of Enlightenment, you can read, essence and existence are the same thing. The essential substance is experienced in its deepest nature as existence. This level of experience is so deep and profound, so full and packed with a life significance, so moving and so powerful, that it's not possible to communicate it through words. And you may have noticed this in your work. Every essence can be described, just like anything else, with words and images. This does not mean that someone who hasn't had the experience will understand the description. However, one who has the experience will easily understand what the description is referring to. I think the reason why you're here today is while you have understood some of this. An essence, as described by Almas, is for me a root of logosynthesis. And we can refer to it with words when we talk to people who are aware of it. I attended seminars with Almas a few times, and I was always pleasantly surprised about the parallels between his worldview and logosynthesis. And I use the term essence because it's so easily compatible with other religious or spiritual schools. And at the same time, it's not connected in a fixed way to a specific school or religion. Essence in terms of logosynthesis has a personal dimension, your essence, your immortal soul, your higher self, and it also has a huge universal dimension, the unspeakable, the divine God. That's so big that now we're going to move back to planet Earth. And Plato, the Greek philosopher, has said, man is a being in search of meaning. And if you look at this picture by the Scuola di Athena, forgot who the painter is, he points up. There's another image next to him where Aristotle stays in a horizontal plane. The material world doesn't have meaning in itself. It's your essence that provides meaning to your lives. A meaning that can never be provided by anything material or mental. Your bodies and minds are vessels of essence, instruments to help you find your way in the world of form. I deeply believe that your appearance on the planet has a meaning. It's not a coincidence that we are all here on this planet, and that we are here together today. That has a meaning. And if I look at another giant, it's Roberto Assagioli. You may like this, Astrid. In this context, I want to mention Roberto Assagioli. He was an Italian psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, and he was, after Carl Gustav Jung, one of the first to understand humans in their wholeness, beyond being conditioned by biological drives, as in Freud's psychoanalysis, or programmed by mental processes like in traditional psychotherapy, especially cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. We are more than body and mind, as I said in the Gateway experience. Assagioli wanted to develop a scientific psychology that recognizes the reality of the soul and that includes joy, meaning, fulfillment, creativity, love, and wisdom. In short, a psychology in which your life has a meaning. And also Jolie called it psychosynthesis. And here we meet another giant, also regarding to meaning. There are always choices to make. When it comes to meaning, Viktor Frankl was the absolute expert. He was a psychiatrist and neurologist, and I saw him in 1994 at the Evolution of Psychotherapy conference in Hamburg, Germany. Then he was already over 90, but his presence was still impressive. Viktor Frankl has been in prison of Auschwitz concentration camp for 3 years, until its liberation by the Soviet army in 1945. Frankl's idea of the concentration camp, Frankl's experience of the concentration camp, led him to develop a new form of therapy. He called it logotherapy. And the main idea behind this is that people can find meaning in their lives through work, creativity, and love. And even when life seems meaningless or hopeless, there will be ways to make it meaningful again. Every day, every hour in the concentration camp offered the opportunity to make a decision which determined whether you would or would not submit to those powers which threaten to rob you of your very self, your inner freedom, which determined whether or not you would become the plaything of circumstance, renouncing freedom and dignity to become molded in the form of the typical inmate. The name Logosynthesis I chose is a fusion of Roberto Assagioli's psychosynthesis and Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, and in it there is a tribute to these giants. Essence is existence, yes, and it gives us your why to live. As Friedrich Nietzsche said, another giant, who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow. And if you're working with logosynthesis, the question why is always in the room. We are essence, we are beings beyond space and time. But the meaning of your life only makes sense in space and time, in the material world, in the matrix, as we call it. And that is where we exist. This is the place in which we can discover our meaning and live up to it. As Teilhard de Chardin said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Knowing why to live doesn't mean that you also know how to live. Awareness of essence and fulfilling your life task on the planet are two entirely different things. So here we go. We enter the matrix. And the next giants on my list are the Wachowskis, Lana and Lily. In 1998, they designed and directed The Matrix. This movie visualizes an imaginary society that is cold, impersonal, even dehumanizing. People in the story are enslaved by needs and obsessions, and maybe possessions. They rely on a system that controls every aspect of their lives. They are trapped, physically and mentally. And if you're trained in logosynthesis, you may have seen the following video clip, but I think its message is important enough to play it here. So,
it is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth.
What truth?
that you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
So in the logosynthesis model, we have a somewhat friendlier concept of the matrix. It's the sum of all energy fields and patterns you meet in the world around you. You're born here, you live here on this planet and this time, with this with this meaning, your purpose, your mission. So in contrast to the movie, our view of the matrix is friendlier. The matrix provides the resources you need to survive, to grow and develop, but it also sets up the challenges you must face to fulfill your mission on the planet. So we are essence, we are born into the matrix, and we must find ourselves. In logosynthesis, the self is the interface of your essence, your core being, and the matrix, the scene of your own action movie. You must become aware of essence, as well as the matrix you have chosen, to advance the consciousness of yourself and of the universe as a whole. It's a lifelong learning process. We express this in a diagram, which is based on the Vesica Piscis. It's a very old diagram. The two overlapping circles already appear in this form with the great Stoic giant Epictetus. This version comes from the well in Glastonbury in England. And maybe you remember that if you've been there. It's a very special place. In the logosynthesis model, the self is represented as an almond on the shape of an almond on the interface of essence and the matrix. Also, that almond is not new. It's a very ancient symbol for the meeting of heaven and earth. So here we have essence, we have self and the matrix. But if you look at this, the mandorla, the almond, has been known in religious art for centuries, and it often encloses Christ or Saint Mary. Their images in the mandorla represent the free flow of consciousness between heaven and earth. For me, Jesus Christ represents this consciousness in its core form, and it's also called Christ consciousness. In logosynthesis, this is what we mean by the free self. We have this almond, this mandorla is available in every culture. And I think that's not a coincidence. So essence is too big or too great for your mind to describe or understand, and so is the matrix. And if you're not enlightened, and I'm not, I can say nothing about you. If you're not enlightened, you can grasp only a little part of both. And in logosynthesis, we try to explain what happens here in terms of energy. So we move to energy and healing. Energy is defined as the potential to cause something to happen. Logosynthesis assumes that everything is energy, or information, or consciousness. In quantum physics, these terms cannot be taken apart. In the early decades of the 20th century, Einstein proved that energy and matter are essentially the same. And you probably all know this formula, E is mc squared. In quantum theory, the model that's widely accepted nowadays, this energy concept is extended to information. And if you zoom into molecules and atoms and particles and still deeper, We reach a level at which nothing can be perceived anymore, but a field that's loaded with an infinite amount of information. That's physics as we know it, but there is more. There have always been scientists who look beyond matter, energy, and information. And Newton was one of the first ones. That's not very well known. He had also a clearly spiritual vein. So Max Planck has this famous quote that all matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume that behind this force there is a conscious and intelligent mind. And this mind, with the big M, is the origin of all matter. It's a subtle life force that animates us. In logosynthesis, we call it essence. It's the energy we're made of. Your energy can flow freely, and it can freeze in patterns. It either belongs to us or doesn't. We can access this energy in the service of healing and development with the help of methods which are now grouped under the umbrella of energy psychology, a term coined by my friend and colleague Fred Gallo. And in this field, I met other giants. In the 90s, I became a member of a trauma group on the early internet. I had been interested in trauma for a long time. I had become a trauma specialist and worked with Gestalt therapy, TA, NLP, EMDR, and hypnotherapeutic methods. However, this group discussed completely new ways of approaching trauma. In this context, another giant entered the stage of my life, Roger Callahan. He was a psychologist and psychotherapist, and he discovered that symptoms of his clients disappeared when he stimulated certain acupuncture points in a certain order. He was able to resolve phobias by tapping on only 3 points: under the eye, under the arm, and on the collarbone. Fears were reduced immediately or resolved. This system, called thought field therapy, or EFT, replaced tedious therapeutic procedures. I was very skeptical when I read that. But one day, a guy called Gary Craig offered a free set of videotapes of his new method called emotional freedom techniques. I'm Dutch, so if something is free, I'll be the first to order it. And I ordered Gary's EFT tapes. Those videos changed my life. I wanted to know more. I flew to New York and San Francisco to learn those new techniques. And I met many people who are still in my circle of friends today. And I started to use it. I was probably the first one in Europe to teach the new methods in my practice and in my training programs. My whole thinking moved from emotions, cognitions, and behavior to energy frequencies, fields, and patterns. And David Hawkins' map of consciousness became a central image in my understanding of logosynthesis. So we have essence, we have the matrix, we have the self, and we have energy. We are energy, and we can use energy techniques to relieve suffering, to heal people. So that's the energy part. I'm still in time, yes. Now, the third chapter of my speech here, words move energy. We have this assumption in logosynthesis that words move energy. Where did that come from? I've always loved languages and words. Some of you may have noticed that. And my ideas about the use of words in my work come from other giants. Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the founders of NLP, taught me the patterns of the hypnotic techniques of Milton Erickson, that master of masters. You can recognize this application of transformational grammar in my latest book, Alone to Alive. My TA trainer, Petrushka Clarkson, developed a 7-level model of how we process information. And I remember vividly how she was teaching this at a seminar in Western Switzerland in 1984. Words are powerful tools. We use them to communicate and make sense of the world around us. Words can define, they can name people, objects, places, phenomena, and they describe what we perceive with our senses. Words allow us to share our experiences. We can stories about our inner states and our past experiences. We are mad, glad, sad, or scared. We can use words to imagine and describe possible or impossible realities. We can share our hopes and fears. Words can connect. They make connections between people, objects, places, and characteristics. These connections are facts that can be checked and corrected. They can be beliefs that are rarely questions, or they are ethical or moral values that tell us what we should think or do. These are all normal functions of normal life, functions of words in normal life in the matrix. All these aspects of using words have connotations and led to reactions that can be stored as energy patterns in thoughts, emotions, and behavior. The giants in the field of therapy have taught me the professional use of words when I work with people. Enter energy and logosynthesis. In logosynthesis, words have one more quality. Words are energy patterns that can create resonance, move energy, shape reality. This idea is also not new. It can be found in many religious traditions. Joseph von Eichendorff wrote this beautiful poem in the 18th century. A song is sleeping in all things. It's dreaming on, and the world will start to sing once you hit the magic words. And if you have discovered that magic, your life is going to be different. So words create. Once you hit the magic words, the words focus the speaker's intention. And we know that already since the Old Testament. In the New Testament, we have St. John who said, in the beginning was the Word. And it was not at the beginning, it was in the beginning. En archeon, in a logos in Greek. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's not only in Christianity, we have it also here.
وهو الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بالحق ويوم يقول كن فيكون قوله الحق وله الملك يوم ينفخ في الصور عالم الغيب والشهادة وهو الحكيم الخبير.
Okay, words move energy. The power of the word is not limited to religious scriptures. It's universal. In energy psychology, Larry Nims was the first to realize that you don't need to stimulate acupuncture points to induce change. You can just say some sentences and patterns start to charge for the better. He told me that during a walk in Zurich in 1998. And at the time, I didn't believe a word. It could not be true. So now you're 7 years later, in 2005, I finally discovered that it works. The healing power of words brought everything together that I had been doing in my life. I can apply it, I can teach it, you can learn it, you can apply it. And some of you can teach it and will teach it while I'm slowly stepping back. In this presentation, I've only spoken about the background of the main concept of logosynthesis, essence, the self, the matrix, energy, and the power of words. I could easily fill another half hour with the backgrounds of the methods we use in the logosynthesis model. They come from psychoanalysis, cognitive behavior therapy, humanistic psychology, gestalt therapy, transaction analysis, Ericksonian hypnotherapy, NLP, EMDR, and of course, energy psychology. Maybe that's something for next year. Thanks for listening. Let's take a break.